So good morning, everyone. Welcome to our virtual tour webinar, South Carolina. My name is Jansen Oliver. I am the project lead for the virtual tour 2024. I will be assisting today in our webinar. So before we begin, I just wanted to say thank you to our speakers and also South Carolina Department of Commerce for sponsoring this webinar. So I will go ahead and turn it over now to our President and CEO of the GACC South, Mr. Matthias Hoffman.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jensen. Thank you for everyone joining our kickoff event of our virtual tour here through the Southern United States. So really great to see so many participants from both sides of the Atlantic. And just a little remark about the concept of our virtual tour. So we see an increased interest from German companies in expanding to or in the South here in our wonderful states which we represent. And since not everybody has the time to initially travel all over our region, we want to give you an easy and hands-on access to information on our states, both from an economic development perspective, but also through opinions and testimonials from our member companies, small and large, new and also long-time established ones who have already invested in the South. So today, very proud to kick off the tour with our great partners from the state of South Carolina and listen to what the Palmetto State has to offer to German companies. But before we hand over to Sergio Dominguez, friend and good managing director of the South Carolina Department of Commerce Europe Bureau, warm-hearted thank you also to our Consul General, Melanie Moltmann, for joining us here and also welcome you all. So Melanie, please, virtual microphone is yours. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Matthias. And yeah, good morning to everybody, or good afternoon if you join from the other side of the Atlantic. I'm very happy to welcome you here also. And South Carolina is a great state for doing business. Instead, I've traveled to the last week, and it has very much to offer. It is booming and it has a very engaged business community, but a lot of also engaged communities, local communities, business developers in a very active state that is there to support you. So it's a state that is quite small for American standards, but it's growing rapidly, and I think it has a lot to offer. There's so many different branches of German businesses and international businesses already present that I think everybody could really find niche. And I'm very grateful that, the second virtual webinar series started here on the states and region. I think all the states have a lot to offer and a lot to explain to you. So I hope you enjoy and learn a lot during the next hour. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Melanie. Thank you, Matthias. I now want to introduce our speakers and stuff like that. So I will start with Mr. Sergio Dominguez. Could you introduce yourselves, please?
Hi, this is Sergio Dominguez, Managing Director of South Carolina's Europe office based in Munich, Germany. Thank you so much for having us and for hosting this virtual event today.
Mr. Mark? You're muted, sir.
Yep.
You're muted, sir.
There we go. How about now?
You're good, sir. Thank you.
Round two. Hey, Mark Jensen. I am the managing director for German-based company called ChargeByte. We're probably the newest member here. We just established our Inc. and set up shop in Greenville, South Carolina, early of last year, at the end of last year, actually in October. Company itself is about 20 years old, but we decided that it was time for us to set up shop in the U.S. and I think they picked a really good spot here in downtown Greenville.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Tobias?
Yeah, thank you for having me. Tobias Burger, my name. German. I worked in Germany, worked in Brazil, and now over 8 years here in South Carolina. Currently, I'm the Vice President and the Plant Manager for CF Transmissions Gray Court. We are based in Lawrence County, and we're operating our facility over 12 years. So we started up as a greenfield plant here in South Carolina. So a lot of experience here with the group in setting up a facility in South Carolina, but also expanding the facility multiple times. Recently, we announced a $500 million investment in the transformation of e-mobility, while we're producing currently automatic transmissions, and we will still keep that portfolio. Outside of CF, I'm also the chapter director for South Carolina for the GACC South. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, sir. And unless Mr. Christoph Fernberg is here, I'm still trying to, he's probably still joining.
Yeah.
Yes, you're here.
I'm
Okay,
here.
cool. Could
I'm
you
here.
introduce yourself, please?
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for having me. Christoph Faber. I'm the CFO of the South Carolina Mercedes plant. We're producing here the Sprinter and newly the e-Sprinter as a part-by-part plant. The facility itself has been around since 2006 and constantly growing, and maybe there will be even more growth the next coming years, especially with the transition to electromobility.
Thank you, sir. And thank you to our speakers and stuff like that. Now, before I turn it over to Sergio, he asked that we play a video, so I will do that now before I turn it over to him. So 1 second while I do that. Can you all hear that? Can you all hear the
There's
video?
no,
There's no
nope,
sound?
we cannot. No sound.
Of course. Of course. It's- see.
The new economy is being built on an old dream: work-life balance. The idea that you could work where you love and grow while your business does the same. In most places, a dream is all it is, but not here. In South Carolina, the path to economic development runs alongside some of the top destinations in the country. It runs through every community, from our affordable and vibrant mid-sized cities to our small towns steeped in history. It's true, the roots of the Palmetto State are centuries old, but through those years, we've laid the groundwork for a future built on innovation that includes every worker and every business. The South Carolina Department of Commerce is dedicated to their success, from launch to legacy. We've helped some of the world's most recognizable brands establish and expand operations because we know thriving businesses build thriving communities. We've collaborated with entrepreneurs building the headquarters of tomorrow's life sciences, advanced energy, and electric vehicle industries. Those efforts show why South Carolina is one of the most pro-business states in the country. And as easy as it is to do business here, it's even easier to call it home. Our hubs of discovery, industry, and education have developed among some of the world's most sought-after places to visit. You're never too far from a warm beach or mountain breeze for an opportunity to unplug, escape, and explore. That's why we're one of the fastest growing states in the country, and we're here to stay. So if you're dreaming of a bright future for your business and family, reach for the moon. And when you're ready, the South Carolina Department of Commerce will be there. From launch to legacy.
Okay.
Thank you for that, Jensen. Whenever you have a chance, I'll go ahead and share my presentation.
Yes, so it should be possible, but let me see.
There it is. I have it.
Yes. Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
Well, good morning and good afternoon from Lisbon, Portugal. That's not where the South Carolina Europe office is based. It is actually based in Munich, Germany. We're very happy to be a part of this virtual series, this virtual tour. A special thank you to Matthias and Janssen at the GACC and the team there for helping to put this together. Let's just start with where we are. The state of South Carolina in the fastest growing region of America. This map is very telling. It's a map that is used by a lot of states, a lot of economic development organizations, but it paints, I think, the perfect picture. The density of lights, the brightness of these lights, you see what's happening in the Southeast, especially the Eastern seaboard. If you were to transpose this map on population, on industrial capacity, on GDP, you see a similar picture. So what we would like to do today is share a little bit more about what South Carolina has to offer and the role that we play on behalf of the state here in Europe and also with our colleagues back home. I'll introduce the department. I'll share a little bit more about how we help prospective and existing companies grow in the state, share a little bit about what's going on in the state, what we're focusing on in terms of our industry sectors, tackle some of the more salient topics of the day, like workforce training and recruitment, and then really underscore how we're supporting the German business community in the Palmetto State. So let's get to it. South Carolina maintains and operates a number of international offices around the world. The Europe office is its largest, based and located in Munich. It was established 5 decades ago, in 1975. It is the largest U.S. state representative office of any state here in Europe. We count on a staff of 6 full-time representatives acting and working on behalf of the Palmetto State. This is our building there, front and center, on one of Munich's more notable boulevards, Brienner Straße. And in this office are the 6 that I'd mentioned. We speak 5 European languages: Portuguese, Spanish, French, German, and Italian. And we are really working and supporting European investors, large and small, across this great continent. Again, our services are here to facilitate the recruitment of new investment, but also retain and support those existing companies that have committed to and invested in South Carolina over the years. Lastly, we serve as an institutional point of contact for everything that has to do with educational programs, cultural. We are the leading point of contact with chambers and other bilateral business organizations that are in place here in Germany. For companies considering the Palmetto State, here are a number of things that we offer. It's a free, consultative, and customized service that starts with market research to site selection, workforce, building those connections, and also sharing a little bit more about how the state can support a company. One of the things that I'd like to emphasize is how closely we work with our colleagues back in Colombia. This office is truly an extension and a reflection of the South Carolina Department of Commerce, and we're really here to ease and demystify the process of investing and entering and hopefully expanding in South Carolina. This picture is quite telling. 1,200 foreign-owned affiliates. About half of those are European, and about a quarter of that 1,200 are German. We're very proud of this map. A lot of German flags, a lot of large German flags on this map, which means that there's a higher concentration of German investment in those particular geographies. We are hoping to build on this success, and we are honored to have representatives of 3 prominent companies join us on today's virtual event. A little bit more about South Carolina, located halfway between Miami and New York. Just to put things in perspective, we're a little bigger in terms of landmass than the Free State of Bavaria here. But really what this map shares is how accessible 60 to 70% of the US population is to any company. We are a coastal state, one of the largest and most prominent ports on the eastern seaboard, a very deep national harbor. and a growing population that the video certainly showcased. People are moving to South Carolina, and they're trying to find new ways to live, work, and play in a wonderful place in this thriving region of the United States. If we were to delve a little deeper into the infrastructure and what the state has to offer, the state is small, but it has a number of highways that crisscross its territory. I'd like to say that the most important highway that we have passing through the state is I-95. This highway runs up the eastern seaboard, and if you were to tabulate or calculate the GDPs of every state through which it runs, we're talking about 40% of US GDP. You obviously see on this map dashed lines. This is our railway network, really in place to support the inland and intermodal logistics system that we have in the state that all feed into the Port of Charleston, and then a number of smaller regional airports located in the state. But we are, in essence, sandwiched between two large international airports with Charlotte Douglas International and Hartsfield-Jackson in Atlanta. And I can tell you that Lufthansa and other American carriers offer direct services from a number of German cities to those international airports that put you within reach of South Carolina. Our target industries, we have a number of them. You've obviously heard of a few in recent announcements. Automotive and EV is really the backbone of today's economy, but South Carolina is at its core an agrarian state, and one where agribusiness has evolved and thrived over the years. So everything from farming to food processing, we are strong in. Life sciences is our strongest growing sector. Advanced manufacturing and materials, everything from composites and thermoplastics. Aerospace and defense with big names like Lockheed and Boeing with operations there, and the tier 1 and tier 2 companies that are supporting both civil and military programs. Distribution and logistics are what move our economy and are not only a state asset, but a regional and a national asset for a lot of the companies that are present in the state. Research and development and technology, also very important. And headquarter and corporate offices is a new and strategic sector that we've added on, in addition to advanced energy, where we would like to have companies call South Carolina home for their North American or American presence. Automotive has been in the news recently with the recent Scout announcement going into Blythewood, but automotive has been thriving in South Carolina for over 3 decades. It's been anchored in part due to BMW's Spartanburg plant in the upstate. It is an incredible story to tell. Almost 10 million square feet under roof, over 400,000 cars that are assembled there and sold in the US and exported around the world. But behind those OEMs like Mercedes-Benz vans and Volvo and others are the dozens and dozens of suppliers and companies, small, medium-sized enterprises like the ones that we have with us today, who make this all work. Without them, a vehicle that is assembled in South Carolina would not be able to roll off the assembly line in time. So our automotive story continues and progresses as we look into the electrification of a number of these vehicles and these fleets. I know that Mercedes-Benz van has more to share on this, and BMW as well. But we're so happy to have Mercedes-Benz van with us today, because the Sprinter is also going to be introduced in its electrified version. Workforce is front and center for a lot of international companies with very low unemployment rates and underemployment rates. The state is playing a proactive role in helping to identify, recruit, select, and train people in South Carolina. What I would also mention in this slide is we're also looking at men and women leaving the armed forces, our veterans who are at the peak of their careers, leaving the many military installations that we have scattered across the state. we are going to hopefully do everything that we can to retain that talent and to train and retrain them, given how qualified and disciplined and motivated they are to contribute to the success that the state has seen. Not only those who are leaving the armed forces, but I'd also like to mention their spouses. And so with one person leaving the armed forces, there are a number of others that also are a part of that equation. And so as I near the end of my presentation, I want to showcase really the strong ties to Germany. We're honored to have Melanie Moltmann with us today as the Consul General based in Atlanta. But we have two honorary consuls that are based in South Carolina. Two for a state that is slightly larger than the Free State of Bavaria. And this is something that we'd like to show off because both Elizabeth and Suzanne are tremendous resources to us. And they are at the disposal of those German companies that are looking to have any of their questions asked and that may have any concerns or inquiries related to their stay in the United States. The other thing I'll mention is the German-American Chamber may be headquartered in Atlanta. Its body may be in Atlanta, but its soul is in South Carolina. The hundreds of companies that call, the hundreds of German companies that call the Southeast home, many of which, hundreds of which are based in our great state. And then lastly, Suzanne Dickerson, who I understand is also with us today, or dialing in today, is the director of South Carolina's Fraunhofer Alliance, the only alliance that is in place in the United States that is leveraging the many resources that it has through its 90 different institutes across the world. Suzanne is really at the forefront of kickstarting innovation and being the primary point of contact for this alliance that brings in the private companies together with universities and other assets in state. So in addition to Melanie and her team at the Consulate General in Atlanta and Matthias and his fantastic team in Atlanta, just know that we have representation of our own here, and we also are fortunate to count on the support of Tobias as the head of the GACC's chapter here in South Carolina, and we're very grateful for his time in that. And so as the video really showcased, the quality of life element for us is important, and that's where I'll end the presentation. Really, we are trying to recruit new and support existing companies to a place where you can certainly live, work, and play in a place that is safe and beautiful. So I would like to thank everybody for their time and their contributions today. And the South Carolina Department of Commerce's Europe representation is at your disposal at any time. Should your travels bring you to Munich, we'd love to welcome you to our office, but see us as your resource on the ground. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Sergio, for that wonderful presentation. Okay, we are now moving to our roundtable / Q&A part of the webinar. So how this will work is our lovely Director of Consulting, Jona Ronval, will be moderating the questions, and the questions can be given through the chat, or we have some internal questions that will be asked them. So please write in the chat any questions you would have for our lovely speakers, and let us begin. So I now turn it over to our wonderful director, Jona Ronval.
Thank you very much, Jansen. My name is Jona Robert. I'm the Director of Consulting Service here at the German-American Chamber of Commerce of the Southern United States. And we are here to support German companies managing successfully the market expansion to the United States. So also very warm welcome from my side to everyone who joins us today. And thank you very much for being here and sharing your experiences, Christoph, Tobias, and Mark. I'm convinced that your input and your experience will be very valuable for many companies that joined us today. So the purpose is to learn from you, to learn from the experiences you already made, and share some experiences and maybe also some mistakes you made that should be avoided in the future, or any hints and tips you can give to companies coming to the United States. So maybe we can start with you, Mark. What obstacles did you face when establishing your business in South Carolina or making your expansion?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So I'd mentioned we're pretty fresh, we're pretty new. We're a German-based company. We develop and manufacture charge controllers for electric vehicles and electric vehicle charging stations. And so when we came over, for us, the industry here in the U.S. has been growing pretty quickly, and we had already established a pretty large customer base here in the U.S. And now we're trying to transition that over here. I think one of the big things in the beginning is trying to transfer the knowledge that you've built in Germany, especially on the technical side, over here, right? So the hiring recruiting process is definitely a difficult one. And even though we're here in South Carolina, where we've got top schools with Clemson and the engineering and University of South Carolina and in Charleston as well, the employment levels are extremely low. And so, trying to recruit internally has been a struggle for sure, but then also trying to transfer that knowledge from our German workers over. So the cool thing is here, and I think I really got to thank the GACC with that as well, is the network that you have here within the German industry. So luckily, we always kind of have exactly somebody we can go to, at least to point us and send us in some direction. So that's been super helpful. But I think, especially in the beginning of the transition, that's knowledge transfer, that the visa process too of bringing your first Germans over, all that has been probably the most challenging in the beginning.
I can understand. Yes, I think workforce development is a big topic for everyone coming to the United States. A challenge for establishing a business newly in the United States or in South Carolina in this case, but probably also if you expand your business in South Carolina. Tobias, what are your strategies for training or attracting talent in South Carolina? How does it differ maybe to the German approach?
Yeah, also we have very similar approaches. So as already previous speaker already mentioned, so we have, let's say, very good universities here. So basically for the engineer degrees like Clemson or University of South Carolina. But I need to point out we have here a very good technical college system, maybe comparable when we're looking now maybe in a German mindset, maybe between a Meisterschule, a technical schule, yeah, so the hands-on. They develop even more degrees, associate degrees, even the first one starting with bachelor degrees. But here really the focus on hands-on experience, because this is a very, let's say, a key skill for us, because we are operating very highly automated advanced technologies. And for example, in the area like maintenance, SPS, control, electronics, to maintain this equipment, hands-on knowledge is very much needed. On the other side, from the shop floor side, we have several models also in place. Also, let's say, looking for like the German 3-year dual apprenticeship model, more companies setting up structures, even aligned with the IHK, but also models that are following, like in the shadow apprenticeship models, having people coming out of high schools directly into hybrid models between theory and practical knowledge. And the other topic is then for sure, let's say, the knowledge transfer with German mother plans and other, let's say, networks inside the companies.
Very valuable input. Thank you very much for this, Tobias. And I think it shows how valuable and unique the German apprenticeship system is. You sometimes do not notice it when you're in Germany, but when you're abroad, you can also see the benefits of it. But good to see that it is developing in South Carolina. Christoph, maybe from the expat perspective, Mark mentioned earlier that also the visa topic can be a challenge. When you are relocating employees to South Carolina, do you have special packages for them, or do you have special expat packages?
So we have, let's say, we have various different types of packages and relocating. As we already heard from Sergio that it's nice to live here. So we are a very attractive position within the Mercedes network. We're not only having people coming over from Germany, we have a lot of South Africans, a lot of South Americans that are interested here. And we do offer some housing support and some relocation support, but we also offer that for our American talent that we bring into the Charleston area. So that is not that much of a difference to that. I would say on a general perspective, it is helpful to ask for advice here in the US. And on the visa and the permitting side, it is good to ask for advice. On the site selection side, it's good for ask for advice. And there's a very good network and structure in place which we can rely on, like Elizabeth Gibbs from council helping with the visa topic, like the Chamber of Commerce helping us, like the Department of Commerce helping us, like the regional development office is helping you. And that's what still, even after 20 years being here on site, we use this network. And whenever we run into an expansion topic, we can heavily rely on that network.
Thank you very much. That's very good to hear, and I think it's a key statement to take the help that is offered, take the advice that is offered. That nobody's expected to know everything. So I totally agree with your comment to say take the feedback you can get and the advice you can get. You mentioned some areas where you would ask for advice or where's advice to ask for advice. What are maybe some benefits, but also risk of having a global presence, being in South Carolina, but of course being also a global company, maybe from the corporate culture perspective?
Well, the transition of people, the transition of talent, let's look into the future. If we go now all in with our electric architecture, which we already announced to a certain part, and we're trying to fight for with South Carolina as well, you can manage and transition your talent through the different locations to help with the rollout and the launch of new products and activities. And that is certainly something where South Carolina also adds a cornerstone. So in the last 5 years, we've been developing our facility from the ugly duckling in our production network into being a respective partner. We just launched the eSprinter as the first plant in the world. So that proves that there is talent here, that there is opportunities here. And the risk I would see in South Carolina, it certainly is workforce retention and training. That is our highest daily work that we do, is order to get the right talent, to train the right talent, and then to keep the right talent. For all the participants of this meeting, we have so people could leave with 2 weeks notice, and that is certainly something that requires you to make your processes more stable and more reliant on the general process than on the person itself, compared to a German operation.
I agree. The system is definitely totally different compared to the German system with high employment laws. Maybe a question for Sergio. You mentioned that you also support in workforce development. How would you describe the workforce availability in South Carolina in general?
It's one that is data driven. We have, as a state, the most real-time picture and reality of all the movements that are happening in the labor market. Some of those statistics that you may find available online may not be reflective of what's happening on the ground. So if you would like to learn about or have labor analyses provided, that's something that our research department back in Columbia would be able to furnish relatively quickly on a job description or job profile basis, looking at wages, looking at wage evolution, looking at different pockets of those skill sets that may be available across the state. And again, what I had mentioned too, we're monitoring very closely the people who are leaving the military or who are retiring from the armed forces, and how we can keep them in the state. This is a major source of employees or future employees for a lot of the companies that are looking in, and then for some it may be a preference. The other thing I would like to mention is not only the recruitment and the training, but also the retraining programs that the state has available through, or that are offered through, the technical colleges that are sort of located across the state. So that's something to keep in mind. Again, ask, see what you're eligible for, see what you're qualified for, and leverage the resources and the context that you may have just down the street from you. And for a prospective German investor coming in, take the time to see some of these training centers. The Aerospace Training Center in Charleston, for example, is a modern, sophisticated facility, And believe it or not, Boeing occupies an entire floor for its training efforts, for its plant down there. So we have a lot of experience doing this since the early 60s, and we're not reinventing the wheel. We're building on some of the curricula that we've devised and developed over the years and updating them and refining them to address the needs of companies that are looking at us. Thank you for the question.
Thank you very much for the very valuable input. I think it's very important to know for everyone that there is support for the workforce development, as well as from your side, but also from our side. So thank you very much for the input. I think workforce is a very important topic, but we have another important topic to consider, or several important topics. One of it, supply chain. Tobias, how do you approach the supply chain topic, receiving shipments in South Carolina?
Okay, so we have a very diverse supply chain for our product. So we are sourcing out of South Carolina, we're sourcing out of US, out of Mexico. We call it the region. And we also sourcing key components from Europe and from Asia. For example, some electronic components from our lead plants in Germany inside the CF group. Here we're using the very good infrastructure. We have a very good port. I think it was from Sergio earlier mentioned, Port of Charleston. One of the fastest growing port. For example, also retailers like Walmart and Target are using this port. BMW is using it for export of the X models. So this is basically our main inbound port. And for the other thing, let's say regional supply chain, we're using interstate infrastructure that is also very well. For example, the 85 is between Atlanta and Charlotte, a very good interstate. And in addition, we have also good airport connections. So if, for example, air freight are needed, we mentioned earlier, Atlanta and Charlotte, depending where you are in South Carolina, 2 to 3 hours drive away. We have an airport in Greenville. All three are passenger and cargo. So we have a very good, let's say, network to receive parts.
Thank you very much for the input. I think it's very important to understand that an expansion is a very complex topic, especially considering also the supply chain. Good to see that South Carolina has lots of potential regarding this. Mark, we already talked about several topics. We talked about supply chain. We talked about workforce development. What other internal decisions had to be made in your company before you made the decision to expand to South Carolina?
Yeah. Honestly, for us, the decision was almost made for us. Our industry in e-mobility is growing pretty quickly, and our customer base in the US had been growing extremely quickly. And if you look at the Southeast is probably, especially within that industry, the section that's growing the fastest. You know, they kind of jokingly in the industry call the I-85 from Atlanta, Greenville, Charlotte, Raleigh. They call it the battery belt because you've got a lot of companies in this industry moving into this area. For us, South Carolina specifically actually kind of goes back a little bit in history. So ChargeByte is actually originally a spin-off from a company called Intech Automotive Engineering. And Intech actually made that move to South Carolina about 15, almost 20 years ago to support BMW here originally. And so for us, you know, I had been here with Intech. I'd known the area well enough. And honestly, it was a very easy decision. You know, it's an extremely fast growing city. It's appropriate in size for us here in Greenville, South Carolina. I think it only took one visit of the management team and CEO to come out here and walk downtown, see the waterfall park and everything to fall in love with the city. And location-wise for the industry, it's perfect. You know, we've got customers in Charlotte, we've got customers in Atlanta, Knoxville, Chattanooga, and Nashville. They're very centrally located. So from here, we could branch out pretty quickly. So some of the factors, like I said, on the business level, when it came to the actual growth of the company, were kind of made for us because the growth in general within this industry is happening so quickly. But when it came down to actually making a decision for Greenville, South Carolina, was kind of the history of it. And just me being here for such a long time and knowing that this is also from a quality of life perspective, just the perfect place to be. We've got, like we touched on earlier, we've got the mountains, you've got the beach 3.5 hours away. So it works out very well for us.
Great to see that it works for you. What Sergio presented before, being there, living where others do vacation. So I think it's a good example with the mountains, the ocean, and all the business over there.
Exactly.
Maybe to have a quick look also from the financial perspective. I think there are certain points also to consider, probably from the financial perspective. Christoph, what type of cost should German companies expect when they want to expand to South Carolina?
Well, I would generally say you should not come to South Carolina if you're looking for major cost advantages on the labor side. Good and trained labor has its price, and it has increased over the last couple of years. Also with all the inflation, as it has in Europe. So South Carolina is for a place where you want to retain talent and train your talent and try to keep people within the company, and it is not for a cheap workforce development. I think that is the main topic. As the other people in the call already stated, the good relation with the port and the close relation with the port helps us a lot in the Charleston area. We have a lot of inbound freight coming in. That's a nice thing, and parallel USMCA production within Mexico, the US, and Canada for parts and localized parts. That also helps. But I would say the biggest topic is beware what you want to do. Define your business case. Look for the right talent. Look for the right opportunity to get the talent. That's the factors you have to factor in.
Okay, very good advice. Thank you. So they will see that there are cost differences and pros and cons.
And of course, maybe one addition, if you're looking at expanding at the moment, there are some very interesting federal and local programs to help to ease some of the initial investment when it comes to incentives, like Inflation Reduction Act or other topics.
It's a very good topic, talking about incentives. Sergio, I know incentives are a very broad topic and we do not want to go into detail here, but can you maybe name 2-3 categories where companies can expect incentives in South Carolina?
As you mentioned, incentives are defined and granted based on 4 key variables. Obviously, you have to pick the state, but within the state, we have 46 counties. By the way, the US has over 3,000 counties. You're going to have to pick one. That's the gargantuan task that a lot of these companies have, is really focusing in and zeroing in on where you'd like to get started. South Carolina is a good start. We'll help you on the rest. Capital investment is also important. That entails real and personal property, everything from real estate to the machinery and equipment that will be housed in that facility. Then we look at the critical part of this whole thing, and that is labor. How many people does your company intend on hiring, and what kind of profile and what kind of wages will they be paid in that particular community? 46 counties, they are not all the same. They have flexibility in what they're able to put on the table. There are also different tier designations, that is wages, or how their incentives on jobs are tabulated based on the tier and the average wage. That is then calculated to give you or yield a certain level of credits. But again, this is on a case-by-case basis, and we're happy to go into greater detail with each of the companies that are interested. I would also point you to our newly relaunched website, where there is a page dedicated to incentives, and our new business incentives brochure is public. So you can go there and find and see cost simulations or calculations of how these incentives are put together and calculated for the company vis-a-vis the rest of what they have planned in the US.
Thank you very much for explaining this, Sergio, and also explaining again the complexity of incentive programs. Due to the federal system in the United States and all the counties, I think this is a very valuable information for all German companies to know, that there are opportunities, but it has to be decided on a case-to-case basis, and there's no right answer for every case. So thank you very much for pointing this out. Tobias, maybe one last question. What would you say were for you the main driver for ZF, the main driver to expand to South Carolina?
Good. First of all, we started already. Let's say we have already an operation in South Carolina, so we have, let's say, good experience already. Yeah. We talked earlier about, let's say, the training models what we have in place coming from the university technical college systems. Yeah. We talked about the port infrastructure. For us, also very important. For example, our facility is directly on the interstate. That's very important because we are supplying our customers with truck deliveries up to Michigan, to Mexico, to Tennessee. So it's very, very important that we have a really, let's say, robust interstate system. And the other thing is also the support from the state, also from the Department of Commerce. And for sure, you're getting this also in other states. I need to be very transparent. But one topic what makes for me really the difference here in South Carolina is we mentioned already network and connection. The state, yeah, we mentioned earlier, it's a smaller state, yeah, who, let's say, in the size of Bavaria. So it's for us here very much easier to access Department of Commerce and other departments. And we have here a really great support in connecting companies with their need. So, for example, the Department of Commerce is extremely active in supplier connections and other needs that to support the companies be successful. And this is one of the really different element what I see compared to other states.
Thank you very much for the input, Tobias, and thank you very much to all our experts here today, Tobias, Mark, Christoph, and also Sergio. I think it is a very valuable input. And I can agree with your statements. I think it makes sense to ask questions. It makes sense to talk about topic and also ask for advice. And that is why we are here. And that is why the German Chamber of Commerce is here. That's why why Sergio is here with the Department of Commerce to support you. And I would use the short part before we go over to questions from the community, also to point out quickly our support. So as a chamber, we have a very broad network here in the south of the United States, also in South Carolina, where we can help you, put you in touch. We also have our skills initiative who can support with workforce topics. And of course, my department, consulting services, we also support you with your first step into the United States, but also with your further expansion into the United States. So everything from feasibility studies, market research, over to supporting establishing a company, finding the right location, or also finding staff. We are here to support. And what is, I think, also very interesting for smaller German companies that maybe do not want to take the initial risk and want to try out the market first. We also offer business representation service, which allows you to have a soft start in the market without any high capital expenses or high risk to start in the United States and then move on with your expansion. So we are here for your questions. We are here to support you. So now I would like to open it for any questions from our audience today.
I would just like to point out, you and I, if I may, a gentleman in the chat asked a question about expansion. So if you are an existing German company somewhere else in the United States and you're looking to expand or maybe relocate, I put my email there in the chat section. Feel free to call me or write me. I'm happy to connect you directly with our colleagues in Colombia. Again, we work very seamlessly. The channels of communication are wide open. Our role here during that process is we're happy to visit with the company here in Germany, to express our interest, to learn a little bit more about the company, to see and feel what the company makes, and really build that personal relationship. You know, our governor likes to say that South Carolina is a handshake state. We mean it. We're true to our word, and we want to put ourselves at the disposal of the company and their executives at any time during this process. So I'd also underscore the fact that we work very closely with the Mittelstand. That is the backbone of Germany's economy, but it's also our backbone. We talk about big nameplates like the OEMs that were mentioned, but behind every OEM are dozens and dozens of small, medium-sized, family-owned companies that have really put their money where their mouth is to invest and make the big jump across the Atlantic. So we're here. we're ready. And again, see us here in Munich as an extension of our colleagues back at headquarters. Thank you again for the question, Richard.
I can only agree. Thank you, Sergio, and also thank you, Richard, for the question. We as a chamber also, of course, also available for all of your questions. We also support you. We have colleagues in Texas, we have colleagues in Austin and also in Houston. If you're in this location, you can just give us a call and we will support you with everything further. We'll also set up a call. And as always, Sergio and we are working very closely together to support you with your plans. So please give us a call or send us a mail afterwards, and we will see how we can support you the best. Okay, any more questions from the audience? Okay, then I think we can close our first virtual tour through the Southern United States with our kickoff in South Carolina. I think it was a great start, a great kickoff with very valuable information. So thank you very much again for all the input from our speakers. And if you have any questions, you would like to talk maybe in private, do not want to ask a question now, please feel free to reach out to us. Give us an email, give us a call, and we are very happy to schedule a meeting with you to support you and answer all of your questions. Again, thank you very much, everyone, for attending today. It was our pleasure having you. And wherever you are on the side of the Atlantic, have a great evening or have a great start in your day.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you to our speakers.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.